A new NAFTA. President Trump announces Canada is joining a trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico. We'll have reaction from local leaders in Washington. And in Encinitas Beach reopens 48 hours after a teenage boy was seriously hurt in a shark attack. One year later, the city of Las Vegas stops to remember the mass shooting that took dozens of lives.
Your brain is saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, these are our friends, so that means that they're people that we like, that we support them, that we want to be part of what's good for them.
And the science of empathy. The California Dream Project looks at one of the factors in finding a solution for homelessness. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A deal is in place to end NAFTA. The new partnership will be called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Canada joined late last night after months of negotiations. It protects Canada from auto tariffs and allows U.S. farmers greater access to Canadian markets. There will also be new provisions on digital trade and intellectual property that were not part of NAFTA. President Trump is set to formally sign the agreement next month. Then it will be sent to Congress for final approval. President Trump spoke about the deal earlier today at the White House.
Throughout the campaign, I promised to renegotiate NAFTA, and today we have kept that promise. But for 25 years as a civilian, as a businessman, I used to say, how could anybody have signed a deal like NAFTA? And I watched New England and so many other places where I was, just the factories were leaving, the jobs were leaving, people were being fired. And we can't have that. I have to certainly give my highest regards to Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. A lot of stories came out about Justin and I having difficulty together, and we did over the trade deal. But I'll tell you, it's turned out to be a very, very good deal for both, and a very, very good deal for all three. It puts us in a position that we've never been in before. It's very good when you look at the world and what the world is doing, and when you look at the unfair trade practices that countries are using against the United States. This is a terrific deal for all of us. By the way, without tariffs, we wouldn't be talking about a deal. Just for those babies out there that keep talking about tariffs, that includes Congress. Oh, please don't charge tariffs. Without tariffs, we wouldn't be standing here. I can tell you Bob and all of these folks would not be standing here right now.
More than 100 San Diego and Baja California leaders are in Washington, D.C. celebrating this deal. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero has the story from Washington.
President Trump says NAFTA was the worst trade deal ever made, and that he's helped forge something new, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. But San Diego and Baja leaders in Washington say it's actually very similar to NAFTA. It's just strengthened and updated for the digital age. It also includes a new chapter on environmental protections. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer came to D.C. with a delegation to lobby for the trilateral deal.
Free trade is incredibly important to us in San Diego. That's a strength that we use to compete from other regions around the world, so we want to keep that going.
The agreement still needs congressional approval, and the delegation plans to lobby for that in D.C. They're also lobbying for funding to improve ports of entry in Southern California, such as new technology to expedite cargo processing. President Trump had threatened to move forward on a bilateral agreement without Canada, saying the country was being too difficult in negotiations. But Canadian embassy representatives told members of the San Diego delegation that Trump's rhetoric was misleading, and that the speed of the negotiations was unusually fast for a treaty this wide-reaching. From Washington, Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Tomorrow, the delegation will meet with Mexico's ambassador to the U.S. Jean Guerrero will bring us reports throughout the week on Evening Edition, KPBS Radio, and kpbs.org. A San Diego County Sheriff's deputy accused of sexual assault is back in court. This morning, Deputy Fisher faced a judge for a preliminary hearing regarding added charges. He was already accused of groping 13 women over a 2-year period when he was rearrested last August for 5 new charges, including forcible oral copulation. Today in court, we learned more about the circumstances of the alleged unwanted physical encounters. In all, 19 women have filed civil lawsuits against Fisher, alleging he assaulted them while on patrol. A couple of new laws signed by Governor Jerry Brown will focus on police accountability. One new law opens public access to internal investigations involving police shootings that cause serious injury or death. Police labor unions opposed it, saying it could be too intrusive into the personal lives of officers and their families. The second law requires agencies to release audio or video footage within 45 days of shootings and other incidents. Today marks 1 year since the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. A remembrance was held in Las Vegas at sunrise for families of the victims, survivors, and first responders. 58 people were killed when a man fired shots from a hotel room into a crowd attending an outdoor concert. Hundreds were injured, including several from the San Diego area. Jennifer Irvine, a lawyer from San Diego, is among those who died. The anniversary of the Las Vegas shooting has local first responders taking stock of their readiness. Deputies with the San Diego Sheriff's Department were in Imperial Beach today, showing some of the equipment they use, including trauma kits and rescue shields.
It's almost like a muscle memory is the way we try and do it. It's like, you know where your gun's at. Know where you keep your tourniquet also. And we can do it, and you can almost do it in the dark. By the time training's done, you can do it with your eyes closed.
Deputies keep the trauma kits in their vehicles and in some cases on their bodies as part of their official gear. An off-duty San Diego Sheriff's detective was at last year's concert and helped with the response. Various groups have pushed for changes to San Diego Unified School Board elections over the years. KPBS education reporter Megan Burke says now one group is looking to force reform through the courts.
The nonprofit Parents for Quality Education has filed a lawsuit alleging San Diego Unified's election process violates the California Voting Rights Act. It seeks changes to how the elections are run, and it asks the court to block the election of 2 school board members next month. The state's Voting Rights Act prohibits citywide elections if they dilute the vote of minority communities. San Diego Unified trustees are elected in a citywide runoff, but only after competing in a local subdistrict primary. Sitting board members defend that process and argue a move away from citywide voting could actually disenfranchise voters in minority communities and parents who send their kids to schools outside of their voting district. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Some opponents of California's gas tax increase say the money isn't being used for its intended purpose. Today, they joined Republican lawmakers to demonstrate outside a DMV office near the Capitol. It's been criticized for allowing Capitol workers to bypass long lines elsewhere. Those who support Prop 6 are pointing to a state analyst that showed nearly $8 million in gas tax revenue is being spent on DMV overhead cost.
1 in 3 of our Californian families live close to the poverty line or below it. They're struggling to make ends meet. This gas tax will cost them $600 to $800 more a year. So instead of buying groceries for their family, school clothes for their kids, that money will go straight back to the state of California.
There are 6,500 projects currently going on throughout the state, and the system's improving, and it has nothing to do with the DMV.
There's been plenty of money thrown at the problem. Californians are paying plenty in taxes. They're paying more than they should in taxes. What we need to start demanding is a government that actually performs at the level that Californians deserve. And an audit, a real audit, is an important first step.
Republican lawmakers are calling for independent audits of the DMV every 3 years. Governor Jerry Brown has asked for a review of DMV wait times and other issues, but critics say that's not enough. San Diego is working to promote public transit as cleaner and a greener way to get around. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says officials are giving one method a try tomorrow: free rides.
Tuesday, October 2nd will be San Diego's first ever free ride day. Passengers can hop on any local bus, trolley, or train absolutely free all day.
It's one day, it's one choice, but we can turn it into a rich opportunity to get more people using transit.
MTS Board Chair and San Diego City Councilwoman Georgette Gomez says more transit ridership means cleaner air, savings on gas and parking, and more time to yourself on your commute.
I want to make sure that we are changing the culture in San Diego by choice, create real choice, that transit is a real choice for San Diegans.
At a rally promoting the event last week, Mayor Kevin Faulconer said Free Ride Day will also help reduce San Diego's greenhouse gas emissions, most of which come from people driving cars and trucks.
And of course, we need the help of all San Diegans to do their part. So I want to thank MTS for providing the opportunity for residents across the region to use our great public transportation system for free.
I'll be riding the public transit system up and down San Diego County tomorrow and documenting the experience online. You can follow along on Twitter at AC Bowen. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
We've reported extensively on the political approach to ending homelessness. Tonight, we get a little more personal. As part of our statewide collaboration covering the California Dream, KPBS reporter Amita Sharma looks at the science of empathy.
Get out of here.
Last year, I interviewed a woman named Cheryl Taylor. The 63-year-old wore pink bunny ears on top of her head. She was living on a San Diego sidewalk after being evicted from her home. She said that people living in the luxury high-rise across the street didn't know her story. They'd never asked. They just yelled.
You're just dirty trash. Why do you have to be here?
It looks like a 45-minute plus.
Then this spring, I interviewed Chad Bordas. He was working 16-hour days as an Uber Lyft driver and selling cars online. He was also living in his car.
How do we get to a point where we devalue human life? To where, it's okay if we step over homeless people or, if you're sleeping in your car, it doesn't matter.
I know a lot of Californians worry about the state's growing homelessness crisis. Some are concerned with health risks, crime, and falling property values. Others work day in and day out to try to improve things. Shelter workers, advocates, police, paramedics, citizens, and politicians. It got me wondering about our collective capacity for empathy. And I looked to science for some answers.
Empathy is probably as native as any other sensory modality, hearing or vision or taste.
UC San Diego neuroscientist William Mobley says you can actually see empathy in brain imaging.
If you look at the parts of the brain that are activated when we feel pain or internal distress or sadness or even surprise, the same regions in the brain that are activated by those kinds of internal stimuli are also activated, at least they overlap with regions that are activated when we see pain or surprise in another.
Mobley says research shows people's own experiences can foster empathy. So can the way we talk about people who are struggling. It reminded me of Riverside Mayor Rusty Bailey. He refuses to call people living on his city streets homeless.
I've been calling them neighbors without homes.
How you doing, girl?
Mobley says once you change the language, the mindset can follow.
Your brain is saying, wait a minute, these are our friends. So that means that there are people that we like, that we support them, that we want to be part of what's good for them.
And that kind of thinking, practiced enough, can spark a powerful chain reaction.
Empathy changes everything. It absolutely prevents me from ignoring or diminishing the value of another human being. And if everybody's of immense value, how can I ignore anybody in suffering? And if I can't ignore anybody who's suffering, well, then the world just changes.
I ask Mobley Chad's question. Why does it seem that so many folks lack empathy?
It may just be that we're so darn busy. We're so beset by other stresses that it's hard for us to really be the empathic people that we want to be and maybe even aspire to be.
Researchers are looking at whether empathy can be inspired. A study published in the journal Clinical Psychology Review in 2011 found that loving kindness meditation and compassion meditation may intensify activity in the brain that relate to empathy. Another study by Stanford researchers in 2015 showed that the extended practice of loving-kindness meditation can spark behavioral changes linked to empathic responses.
Empathy is a personality trait similar to resilience, optimism, and all of these traits are partly genetic, only about 35 to 50%, which means that 50 to 65% is not genetic. It is affected by environment and behavior, which means it can be modified, which means it can be improved.
UC San Diego psychiatrist and neuroscientist Dilip Jeste says even something as simple as keeping a gratitude diary can stimulate empathy.
We need it for our survival. Without empathy, human species will not survive.
It is a lesson many people, especially homeless people, have learned for themselves. Remember the woman with the bunny ears, Cheryl Taylor, whose address was San Diego's streets? She said she wore those pink bunny ears to make people smile. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
This story is part of our statewide California Dream collaboration. For more on the story or the project, head to kpbs.org/CADreams.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump praises a new trade deal with Mexico and Canada. We dig into what it means for the economy. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A new state report shows San Diego and Imperial counties have had dramatic reductions in teen pregnancy in the past 2 decades. KPBS editor Tom Fudge has the story.
The reduction in teen pregnancy has been seen throughout California. In our region, between the years 2000 and 2016, San Diego County saw teenage births fall nearly 70%. In Imperial County, they fell about 60%. Teen birth rates have dropped for many reasons. Adriana Ramirez with the Imperial County Health Department cites a change in the data privacy law, HIPAA, that meant teens no longer needed parental consent to get birth control.
In 2002, it was revised to include protection to teens, whom often stated that confidentiality was one of the reasons that they did not seek preventive health care services.
Imperial County's teen birth rate of 29 births per 1,000 girls is still one of the highest in California. Ramirez says the county's high rate of poverty and its rural character contribute to that. Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
A portion of the North County coastline has reopened after a shark attack over the weekend. Beacons Beach reopened this morning. Lifeguards say that's because no additional sightings were reported. But this was the scene early Saturday morning when a 13-year-old boy was pulled from the water. First responders say he was fishing for lobsters when he was attacked. The boy was rushed to Rady's Children's Hospital with serious injuries. He's expected to recover. It's still unknown what type of shark attacked him. Well, rain is expected this week, starting with remnants from a tropical storm. Aaron Calandra has details in tonight's forecast.
Well, I hope your work week got off to a great start today. Happy Monday. We are watching Tropical Storm Rosa. It is now over Baja California, and that moist air is surging to the north across the Arizona deserts for the most case. For the winds, 45 miles per hour, so Rosa is certainly weakening as it moves in on land. Here is our satellite and radar. Patchy showers across San Diego County today. Lots of clouds in places. And here's the big picture. You can see much of the moisture is staying off to the east, although eastern San Diego County, you are going to see some of that wet weather. Now, all eyes are also to the north. We have a low pressure system that's coming in off the Pacific. That is going to give us more rain than we're going to see from Rosa. So this is what we're expecting. The flood risk into Tuesday night, again, mainly across Arizona, just parts of Southern California. Could see some flash flooding. That could be the biggest issue. And here is the flash flood watch. So Mount Laguna, Borrego Springs, Campo, Campo, everyone around that region could see some isolated flash flooding. Be careful. We'll see those showers and storms popping up tonight in Borrego Springs and Mount Laguna, but drier along the coast. Oceanside around 68. Tonight in the metro, 72 for the low temperature with a couple of clouds. Now, Rosa, it is going to move off to the north and east, and we are going to be drying out. But again, that low pressure system is moving in. So for tomorrow, San Diego 73. We could still see a bit of wet weather on the eastern side of the county. And then Wednesday, well, that's when we do expect to see some of that rain from the low pressure dipping down into Southern California. The big picture, it's going to be a bit cooler behind that low pressure system, so you'll notice temperatures dipping. Along the coast Tuesday, nice, 75, some showers, some storms popping up on Wednesday, and then a bit cooler down to 71 for the weekend. Inland, expect to see those showers and storms Wednesday. By the weekend, we're in the upper 70s for our highs. Could see a few showers today, Tuesday, and into Wednesday in the mountains. Again, kind of a combination of what's going on. And in the deserts, showers and storms through Tuesday, drier and a bit cooler in the 80s for the rest of the week. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
Governor Jerry Brown has signed California's net neutrality bill into law, and the Trump administration is already trying to block it. The Justice Department filed its lawsuit over the weekend. It claims the California law creates a burden for internet service providers. Net neutrality advocates say the law is needed to prevent companies from slowing or blocking internet traffic. California's law is scheduled to take effect January 1st. The founder of Craigslist is investing $20 million into a new nonprofit news organization. The markup will be led by journalists previously with ProPublica. KQED's Thuy Vu recently spoke to them about their focus.
Joining me now in the studio is the managing editor for The Markup, Jeff Larson. And via Skype from her office in New York City is editor-in-chief Julia Angwin. Welcome to you both.
Great to be here.
Jeff, you say the Markup will be investigating the tech industry. How will you get the data you need? Because I would imagine that companies like Facebook and Google, for example, will not be handing over anything anytime soon.
It is a challenging problem. They're not known for their openness in terms of sharing data. So what we will do is we will hire programmers to work hand in hand with journalists to collect data from these closed systems. Some of the ways that we do that, and we have done it in the past in our work at ProPublica, is we'll create browser extensions that collect that data from, say, people's Facebook feeds or from these lockdown systems. So it will be really important that we collect this data so that we can go to these companies and present our findings.
And say, this is what we found.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
And Julia, why do you think this level of scrutiny is needed right now?
Well, you know, it's not just the tech industry that we think of that needs scrutiny, but just generally tech in society. You know, some of the stuff that Jeff and I have written about is the technology, the software that's used in courts for criminal sentencing, which we found was biased against Black defendants. So tech is being used as an instrument of power, essentially. It's a way to for people in power to implement the decisions that they've made. And so we want to look into those systems and find out, for instance, why is the algorithm flagging some people for more scrutiny at the airport than others, right? These are all embedded in computer systems, and we don't have a lot of insight into them. And I think we as the public deserve to know how these decisions are being made.
And Jeff, what will be some of the main investigative areas you will focus on for the Markup?
I think what we're looking at is the place that technology and algorithms have in our lives, have control in our lives. So not just the large tech companies and the ways in which, you know, information is spread and shared in today's world, but also algorithms that have decisions over regular folks' lives. So Julia mentioned parole decisions. We'll also be looking into car insurance, for example. These technologies that are used to classify and rank and score folks, people don't necessarily think of them when they think of technology, but they are being used with little to no oversight, and we're here to provide that oversight.
So what are the top things that you think people should know about how tech companies use their data and affects their lives every day?
Julia and the other in 2011 did a story called a series of stories that was, you know, it got a Pulitzer nod called What They Know, which was essentially just laying out data brokers and the ways in which our data travel across various different companies. One of the things that we want to do in the markup is pick back up that work in 2018 and look at the ways in which your data travels from a data broker like Experian, goes to Facebook, maybe goes to Twitter or Google, and ways in which that is not necessarily ideal.
Right.
And when these breaches come, when these breaches happen, and they will continue to happen, shining some lights on how that data works.
All right. You will launch next year. Jeff Larson and Julia Angwin with the new news outlet, The Markup. Thank you both for your time.
Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Celebrating the work of Alfred Hitchcock, KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando will tell us about Hitchcock Month at the Angelica Film Center in Carmel Mountain. And on Midday Edition, the race for county supervisor will have a conversation with District 4 candidates Bonnie DeManis and Nathan Fletcher. You'll find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.